I hate when my clients have to use their firearms, but I've had quite a few clients at this point use their firearms in a professional capacity and save lives, save their own lives, stuff like that, and make it home to their families. So that always makes me proud, like to know that people are out there actually using our work. And then it's also nice because if it's good enough for professionals that carry every day, it's also good enough for civilians that are carrying every day, or good enough for people that are just going to the range, or it's a nightstand gun or something like that.
Sure.
So by holding ourselves to such a high standard for reliability and performance, it makes sure that everybody's covered.
Hey, here we are again, over the barrel. But we're not in Wichita. There's no barrel between me and the guy I'm sitting next to. That's because we're in Denver, Colorado, well, a little suburb south of Denver, Colorado. And we're at Danger Close Armament. And I don't know if you know anything about this company, but if you like guns, you need to know about this company. David Service is a friend of ours and a friend of the company. We've done business with Danger Close for quite a while. And what we want to do is, we want to just have we want to talk more about what he does so that you, the consumer, can know more about it and then get these great products. Hi, David. Welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you, brother. So, David, tell us a little bit about who you are.
So, I'm David Service. I'm a veteran. I originally founded Danger Close brand when I was active duty in 2012. I just had a passion for guns that kind of developed during my deployment to Iraq, and I've always been kind of technical, and I was shooting a lot, wanted to kind of elevate my shooting by helping work on my equipment. My equipment was holding me back a little bit, and so kind of got into that, and it's kind of blown up into a custom pistol manufacturer now, and we do all that, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, my passion is just building guns. I'm a certified gunsmith. I love what I do, so.
Yeah, I mean, it comes out when you talk about your company and you talk about the product you make. It's like an instant smile comes across your face, And sometimes in the gun world, when you're responsible for it all, it's a heavy weight on your shoulders, and it probably is. But it doesn't seem like it when you talk about the company and the products in which you're manufacturing. I like that about you. And you mentioned that you're a gunsmith, a certified gunsmith, and you went to school right after the military for that?
Yep, I went to school here in Colorado at Colorado School of Trades. I had been gunsmithing for about a year and a half before I went to school, so it was kind of a little bit of a unique experience while being in school, already kind of having something established. So yeah, it's cool because they teach you in school like all aspects of gunsmithing, not just AR-15 stuff that's super common these days, but we're classically trained in machining and stock making and all sorts of different stuff. We even checkered at the time, like stocks, which was kind of cool. But yeah, in school you literally make a rifle from start to finish. You barrel your own action, chamber it, all that stuff, take a block of wood and carve it into a stock, spending more than 40 hours doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So it just kind of helped me broaden my knowledge of firearms, even though it wasn't catered specifically to the stuff that I was wanting to do, which was pistol smithing. It just gave me a better understanding of the industry and working on guns in general, which I'm very thankful for. And there's kind of in some of the processes that we do, there's some proprietary stuff that has come from being classically trained in gunsmithing, like that I wouldn't, probably have figured out if I didn't have that background. So
good, man. So smart. Veteran-owned business, right?
Yes, sir.
We gotta love that. I mean, it's there's a lot of people that get out of the military and want to become entrepreneurs. Many of them don't make it. You have obviously found a formula, and I think there's some things we know about veterans that most people wouldn't realize. The work ethic. You've had some lazy soldiers in your life, but for the most part, they come to work, right?
Yeah, and I've been a lazy soldier too, like we all have, and you're absolutely right. Like, it's being in the military gives you that discipline to get through the tough times. Like, there's been points in my career where I was living in our shop, and that was one of the toughest points in my life. And if it wasn't for the discipline that you get in the military and the direction, I don't think I would have made it through that point in my life. So I'm very thankful for that. It's there's tough times in the military that build you up, make you stronger. I'm sure you know about that from your own experience.
It just gives you a measuring stick, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, oh, this didn't suck as bad as this time, right? Or this didn't suck as bad as that time. Oh, I walked those 5 miles before with all that stuff on my back. I can go across the parking lot with all this stuff, no problem.
Absolutely. And like, one of the reasons I joined was like, I did 4 years in college. I started when I was 16 years old, going to college full time, and had no direction, no discipline, didn't know what I wanted to do. So kind of on a whim, I just joined the military or the Army, and 2 months later, I'm basic training, and then I told you, like, 3 weeks coming out of AIT, I'm headed overseas. So I got what I wanted out of that, and it definitely, like you said, it's a measuring stick. You're like, if I can do this, then everything else in my life will seem relatively easy. And,
right.
And, that was definitely one of the toughest points of my life, and it wasn't easy by any means, but it definitely gave me the skills to persevere, the tools in my tool bag to persevere and push forward, and to do absolutely whatever it took to, continue and to grow and to get where I needed to be. So I'm or where I wanted to be. So I'm very, very thankful for that skill set and that experience.
I'm very, very thankful that there's still Americans like you that are willing to write that check, right? And that check is considered a blank check for your life when you join the military, because you don't know if you're going to have to go into harm's way, and many of us had to. And it was 17 years before I went to combat, right, after joining the military, where you went like 3 months after getting out of training. So you were like 6 months in the military, and now you're in a combat theater of operations. How very, very daunting for you.
I mean, I was like kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at that point. It was all kind of exciting, but it's definitely, and I really didn't have time to mentally prepare. It was kind of just over there, and it's what I enlisted to do too. I wanted to do my part and do my job, and I was definitely kind of thrown into the fray. But having that experience, being thrown into the fray, is part of being in the gun industry too. Like, there's always stuff that you're adapting, having to change to, and adjust. And same as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you're always having to adjust. And so just kind of having that in the back of your mind, like, if I can go to Iraq with a couple weeks notice, I can adapt to just about anything. So.
Sure. And the bureaucracy, I guess is what I'm trying to say, of dealing with cities and licenses and all the other stuff, the ATF, all that stuff. You're used to that, well, sort of, because the Army has it times 10, Trying to get things done in the Army is almost like trying to get things done at City Hall. So. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you have, in the military or in the Army, you're having to show up and do the right thing, which kind of gives you the right mindset to do the right thing in business as well, and that's one thing I pride myself on, is just ethical business. I don't like cutting corners. I like doing things the right way, because there's that saying, it was like, how you do anything is how you do everything, and I truly believe that and try to live by that. I don't want to cut corners. I want to do things the right way, and that's helped us build rapport in the industry. Like, we have a huge law enforcement customer base here in Colorado. I'm an armor for the city that we're in. We service, Denver for their optic cuts. We're a lot of the suburban police departments here. It's written in their policy that they have to come to us for optic cuts, and it's because they trust us. You know. We do not cut corners, and they haven't had issues, and
cool.
And we got hired as an armor because, the department's having issues with the previous armor, guns weren't being maintained correctly or stuff like that. And we've completely changed our program, you know, so they just trust us, and that's how I want it to be. You know, I want to be trusted in the industry. I want to be known for doing the right thing and for not compromising. You know.
Well, what you do every day is like ripples in a pond. Like the community that you service here is a ton safer because their law enforcement officers are armed with weapons they know that will work when they need them. Another ripple in the pond is the people you service outside of that are getting very reliable pieces that they protect themselves and their families with. And then, you know, the other ripple is that, you know, people buy those guns for, I don't know, do they buy them for, do you get you do things for competition or?
We're more duty and combat oriented than competition. I am working on a competition pistol now, but there's a niche for competition, so that's typically, you know, not a segment that we're big in. But to kind of touch with what you just said is like we build guns for law enforcement, for people that carry guns every day. I know what it's like to carry a gun every day for a living, so do you. Part of the reason why we're trusted is because we hold ourselves to such a high standard as far as reliability. We will not compromise reliability of the firearms that we work with. That's why we only utilize factory components. We're modifying factory components because we know the guns, we're not going to, you know, degrade the factory reliability by doing that. And you know, it's serviced the community really, really well. You know, I hate when my clients have to use their firearms, but I've had quite a few clients at this point use their firearms in a professional capacity and save lives, save their own lives, stuff like that, and, you know, make it home to their families. So that always makes me proud, like to know that, you know, people are out there actually using our work. And then it's also nice because if it's good enough for professionals that carry every day, you know, it's also good enough for civilians that are carrying every day, or good enough for people that are just going to the range, or it's a nightstand gun or something like that.
Sure.
You know, so by holding ourselves to such a high standard for reliability and performance, you know, it makes sure that everybody's covered. And that's really big for us. Like I said, is, you know, we are oriented towards professionals, you know, and that makes me really proud when it's people that are actually out there in the real world using our stuff, saving lives. So.
Well, I tell you that it's remarkable coming in here today and seeing what you guys do, and it's clean, it's efficient, right? And you can tell that there's somebody in here that cares, right? And
Absolutely.
It seems like all your employees are of the same ilk. Now, you did say that to me when we did the tour earlier that all of your people are armor certified, not armor certified, but gunsmith certified.
Yeah, so all our guys that work on the guns in that capacity are certified gunsmiths. So my business partner Will is a certified gunsmith. Our machinist Thomas is, and then myself. All three of us are graduates of CST. Thomas, our machinist, was an instructor there for I think 11 years.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, we all, you know, have certifications, you know, to kind of just ensure that we know what we're doing a little bit. You know, there's obviously, you know, being a gunsmith kind of is above armor level, but we also I'm a certified armor, was a certified armor, you know, for Glock and for SIG. But yeah, it's just kind of having those certifications lets people know that we're not just doing this because it's fun and it's a hobby for us.
Sure.
You know, obviously we enjoy it, and, you know, we all care about the industry here. But, you know, we've had clients that have had problems with other shops where it's people that just like guns that are working on them and they're trusted because they have a shop, but at the end of the day, they don't really know what they're doing, you know, and that's us. You know, if we don't know what we're doing, we won't do it. You know, I'm not here just to make a buck. You know, obviously we're in business, we're a business, but you know, I want to be professional about the stuff that we do, and like I said earlier, not cut corners. So, you know, if I don't have the answer, like, and I can't find out the answer, like, I just won't do it. I'll send it to a specialist. You know, we get contacted all the time for stuff that's kind of outside of our specialty, and I always try to point them in the right direction. You know, if I have firsthand experience with that or stuff. If I don't, then I'll tell them, you know, I don't have experience. But yeah, we're all gunsmiths here. Went through the program and have that background, so it's
That's great.
Kind of unique for us. So
That's awesome. So that ensures that you have a baseline standard to work from there, and it goes up. It makes sense.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you wouldn't. you wouldn't go to a doctor unless he had that parchment on the wall, right? He was
Absolutely.
like, well, I kind of watched some YouTube videos. I think I know what's wrong with your foot.
Yeah. Hey, and don't get me wrong, I've watched a YouTube video in my day on how to take apart some stuff I haven't seen.
That's true.
But yeah, I definitely don't want to get operated on. But yeah, no.
But if you watch the video and you're armed with the information on other things, you're like, oh, now I know why that was.
Well, just having the technical background really helps a lot. I talked about having some techniques that I've kind of developed from my gunsmithing background, and even if it's something new, when you have a general understanding of how guns function and the actual technical processes that happen, it helps you develop better product for your customers, and then just having confidence when you're going to work on something. But it's like one big thing I'm big on when I develop or when we work on our guns is just I hold myself to a high standard as a shooter. Like I founded DCA originally because I was shooting a lot, and I got pretty good and my equipment was kind of holding me back, and I wanted to start working on it. So it started with trigger jobs and stuff like that, and then sight installs, and then I started doing stippling and stuff like that. So holding myself to a high standard as a shooter, knowing what my clients are going to be looking for as shooters as well, helps develop those things. And then also understanding the physics behind guns. Like I'm a sciencey kind of guy. I like to understand what's actually happening during the shooting process, the biomechanics, how our bodies interact with firearms, and then, the physics problem, that you're solving when you're shooting, the gun's generating leverage on your wrist, the muzzles, generating leverage in your wrist is kind of the fulcrum point and all those things. And so understanding how that kind of is actually working helps me better develop products and test stuff for us, when we're developing for our customers. So
I love it, man. I love it. You and a lot of that's because you're interested. Therefore you're an expert.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Like it's kind of like being a mechanical engineer without a degree for gunsmithing. Sure. I would, if I ever went back to school, I think that's what I would go to school to kind of help.
Well, do it at night so you can continue to make these good guns here. That would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what were you most known for at first?
So when we first started out, we were definitely known for recessed borders. At the time, it was just like Ben with Boresight Solutions, who was doing recessed borders. And he had a really long wait list, like multi-year wait list. Our wait list got pretty big fast with it. It got to like a couple years early on, but that was kind of what we were known for, is also doing recessed borders. And then, at the time being somewhat affordably priced and not having a super long wait. But that weight grew. Obviously now the market's changed. There's hundreds and hundreds of professional stipplers out there and stuff like that.
Yep.
But early on, that's kind of what we were known for. And then just doing things different, being clean. We had a lot of innovative things that we designed, as well, kind of later on with our proprietary bobtail modification. We don't do this modification anymore because it's so time intensive. It ended up just being too expensive to do, but we did really clean beaver tail adaptations that just looked factory. It was super, super clean, stuff like that. We had this TLR6 modification where we would do our index cut through it. That was kind of cool and emulated in the couple of years that TLR6s were really popular. So, just try to be innovative and new and, kind of a fresh, look on things. And then always just being function first. I want our stuff to look good because, let's be honest, like if something looks good, it's going to sell better. But I never wanted aesthetics to take priority over function.
Right.
Being a shooter, like everything has to have purpose on the gun and help you, be a better shooter, because there's a lot of times out there, and there's a lot of people out there that they just want to buy expensive guns and expect to be a good shooter. That's not how it works. You have to have your fundamentals. You have to be solid in your shooting capacity. And when you've done that, then you can elevate yourself with better equipment.
Yep.
Like you don't expect Michael Schumacher in a Prius is not going to be faster than your average dude in a Ferrari.
Right.
At the end of the day, the equipment's holding them back, but you still have to have that skill set. So, kind of designing our stuff with that in the back of my mind, like that's important for us. But So that's kind of what we were known for, is just trying to be innovative and doing the recessed border stuff, which was new at the time, and yeah, just putting out something different, putting out quality work, doing it in a reasonable amount of time, all that stuff. So.
Yeah, so I was impressed that we took the tour with your tracking system, you know, because I've had a Glock modified at another location. Before I even knew who you guys were, I was working at the time at Tactical Tailor right after I got out of the military. They lost my pistol. Like, they lost it, and it took them a minute to find it.
Yeah,
I'm like, what? You mean you can't find it? Because I called to check on it, and the guy was like, we don't know where that is. I'm like, pardon me? Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's, you know, we'll have, I'm sure every shop has had a brief moment of panic where you can't find something, but, you know, we do have a system in place to track all orders, and we've spent a lot of time working as a team, you know, my business partner, you know, developing these systems to make sure that things are being done on time and done correctly and done efficiently, which is how every business should operate. And
right.
You asked, you know, early on, we ended up having a really long wait list that was like 2 years long just to send in your gun. And then once we had your gun, it was like 6 months. Mm-hmm. And nobody likes waiting that long, you know, and that's a long, long time to wait to get your pistol back. And don't get me wrong, good work takes a long time, and
sure.
we weren't nearly as efficient in our processes back then. And, you know, I never lost a gun or anything like that, but it just took too long to get customers quality work. And so that's one big thing that lately we've worked on with our new packages, is being efficient. And then, you know, with our actual process of customizing the gun without cutting corners, and then, you know, tracking our systems so that all our lead times, we're really, really solid about meeting lead times now. We rarely blow a lead time. Of course, they're always estimates, but, you know, we rarely blow a lead time. You know, we're always making sure our customers are getting what they ordered. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, there's going to be hiccups here or there, but our accuracy on, you know, the modifications is really, really, really high. Compared to early on, you know, there would be times where customers got the wrong modification, or sometimes usually it was more like they got an extra modification or something like that. But you know, it's, you know, you want to make sure you're getting what you ordered. You know, nobody likes paying money. You know, I know how hard I work for my money, and you work for yours, and everybody works for theirs, and our clients work for theirs. And, you know, our stuff, you know, for a long time was not cheap, and you know, if you're spending that kind of money, you expect quality and you expect it to be done right. And so that's important to us. Our customer experience is important to us. And, you know, we've always been really highly rated in our customer interactions and had great customer service. You know, both my business partner, Will, and I, and, you know, we've taken that as a priority for us to make sure that our clients are treated well, and, you know, and their input's valued, and, you know, we make sure they're getting what they paid for. You know, you paying for quality. We're not going to compromise, like I said, you know. So, but with our new packages, we've worked really hard to make sure that now you can get things done a little bit quicker and still get really high quality stuff at a great value. So it's been big for us.
I've always admired what it looks like when it comes out of the box after you step on it. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow. I mean, it's really cool stuff.
I love when customers or people are like, oh, who made that slide, or who makes that frame? I'm like, no, this is a factory frame that we modified. And they're always, their minds are always blown. They're like, wait, this was a stock Glock, or this was a stock Sig? Like, yep, completely stock. And like, now it looks like this, and they're always blown away with, you know, what we've been able to do with it. And, you know, we're not doing super wild stuff. Like I said, we're more functional oriented, but, yeah, it always makes me happy when customers are surprised by that.
And not only does it look good, it performs great. I know that during COVID, you know, I worked in the gun shop there in Wichita for a while. I was running that place, and, you know, sometimes you'd have 365s and sometimes you wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we'd have Glock 43s and sometimes we wouldn't, but we always could get Danger Close ones. And when they get there, you know, the customer looks at the sticker and gets a little bit excited. He goes, well, I could get a regular one for X number of dollars. I'm like, okay, well, just put this in your hand right quick, and I'll let you feel one that's not modified, and then you can feel this one so you can understand the value you're getting with this this piece of art one, and a lethal piece of art, I guess is what we should call it.
No, you're absolutely right. And like, it's tough because that's one challenge as a business owner is like, it's easy when we have walk-in clients that show up and they feel one of our complete custom guns versus their stock gun. They're always blown away. Like you said, it's the same experience. They're always like, holy crap, this is 10 times better. But when you're trying to sell something online to the client with that, where they can only look at it and they can't feel it, that's where it's a challenge, you know. So that's always an ongoing challenge, is to showcase that better. And, you know, it's also why we have a lot of repeat customers, is they'll order something, they'll get it, and once they actually have it, they kind of take a chance on
Oh,
us.
I got another gun in the safe that needs to go to them.
Yeah, then they actually shoot it and they're just like, okay, now I get it. It was worth it. You know, it was worth the wait. It was worth the money. Like, I'm going to send them something else. So, you know, for y'all listening and watching, you know, if you've ever kind of been on the fence, just take a chance. It's, you know, it's once you actually get it in your hands, you get it on the range, that's where, you know, you see the value, see what the customizations are. They are performance oriented. They're not just for aesthetics, you know. I've never really liked that just aesthetics kind of thing, like we've already been talking about. So you gotta get it on the range. That's where it shines. And like I said, all our stuff's super reliable. So
Yeah, function first, chicks dig it factor second.
Yep.
Right. And they are sexy. The cuts and the some of the designs you have are some of the most innovative I've seen out there. Plus, if I see the bomb on it, I know it's going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I have an art background, so it's like one thing that I did when I was in college. I've always enjoyed designing stuff, and so, you know, knowing what I'm looking for performance, we try to make it aesthetically pleasing, because like I said earlier, you know, aesthetics sell, and you know, you want to have something that you're proud of that you can show off too. You know, like one thing that my business partner and I had talked about years ago is like, I want to build heirloom quality polymer frame pistols in the same way that you might have like Nighthawk or Wilson building you know, metal frame guns. I want to do that for plastic guns. Why can't a plastic gun, you know, they always call it tactical Tupperware or whatever, why can't a plastic gun be quality? Why can't it be heirloom quality, something that you'd actually want to pass down? And so, you know, we try to build guns like that will last, you know, something that you can pass down, you know, they're going to work, something that you can be proud of, still show it off, and be like, hey, look how cool this is, but it also works. Like, I'm not afraid to shoot this, you know. And so that's been a goal for us, and now we're achieving that, you know, with the pistols that we build. And you know, I'm really proud of the work that our team here does building these guns, and they are pretty cool. I'm glad you like them, because I certainly like them.
Let's talk about little parts.
Okay.
So you talked about, or you told me that when we did the tour, one I knew about was your backplate, right? That you guys do, but I didn't know that you spec'd out your own sight package and you spec'd out your own barrel and all those things. And is that because there was a kink in the supply chain, you couldn't get them, or was it because what was in the market's not what you wanted?
It's more like the market, not what I wanted. Like we try to be a turnkey custom shop. So we try to do as much stuff in-house as possible. And the reason why is because we can control the quality.
Yeah.
So, you know, we talked about sights. We had sights that were designed for us because we were using Ameriglows and Trijicon, and this isn't a knock on them, but it's something that we experience, is like, they don't have locking reset screws. So we supply a ton of law enforcement here locally. Like, we've cut thousands and thousands of optic cuts. You know, just Denver PD alone is, you know, 2,200 officers. So not all of them have optic cuts, of course, but we've serviced a lot. And what we would experience is that mostly with our own department, the guns that I would inspect twice a year, is that a lot of the sights would drift, the rear sights, because they're always leaning on stuff or rolling around, tackling somebody or whatever. And without that rear locking set screw, they'd move. So we're like, this is a problem. You know, like, officers need to be able to trust their equipment, sights need to stay aligned, all that stuff. And so, you know, we started looking now, like, hey, what can we have manufactured for us? And we found a company that specializes in sights, and, you know, we're able to offer really high quality sights at an excellent price that, you know, to our clients. And so that was that. Our barrels were, you know, a thing where it's just like, hey, let's have a match grade barrel again that we can design, spec out for us, with expertise from this company that, you know, is well known in the industry for high quality barrel manufacturing. They manufacture barrels for a lot of big name manufacturers, can't say who, but you know, really quality stuff. And same thing, like, hey, I got some designs that I think will look cool, like, that will also function well, give our customers the opportunity to elevate their shooting a little bit. You know, barrels are one of those things that a lot of people, you know, to be honest, buy because of looks. very few people can outshoot their factory barrel. But if you're one of those people, it definitely doesn't hurt, to have a match grade barrel help take it to the next level. Or maybe you just want to be unique. I mean, a lot of people that are in the gun industry, it's just like cars. You want to have something different. You want to customize your gun. You want to show off. So, a match grade fluted barrel is a way to do that.
In gold.
And in gold or in black or whatever you want to do. It's a way to improve performance, but also look really, really cool. So that was kind of that. But again, it just kind of came around to, we try to make as much stuff in-house as possible. We make our own armor sealing plates here in-house just to control quality. We did have supply chain issues with that, but we were also unhappy with the finishes that we were getting and the inconsistencies. So we decided to make our own, and we're real happy with the quality of our plates. And a lot of optics have moved away from needing sealing plates these days, which is great for the industry. But the time, it was definitely the way to go. And then we make our own cover plates, all this stuff. So there's only really a handful of things that we don't do here in house, and the reason why is just so that we can make sure the quality is as high as possible.
Awesome. Man. It shows in every time you pick up a piece. It really, really does. So what's new? What's the future look like for Danger Close?
So we're continuing to expand in our production pistol line. So one big thing for us, and is having different segments of the market that we can kind of tap into. So originally, we had these really long wait times for our signature pistols, were like 16 weeks, stuff like that. So at the first of this year, we launched our new frame packages that were aimed at providing the same quality that we've always provided, but at a more affordable price point. So now we've broken them down into different tiers. And so for a lot of people, they couldn't afford our stuff, or they didn't want to wait 16 weeks, which I don't blame them. That's a long time to wait for anything.
Sure.
And so, we came up with this new pistol line. So now the lead times are down to 8 weeks. We also have turnkey guns in stock, which was always a problem, keeping guns in stock. Anytime we would build Glocks, it would sell out really fast, and then people would have to wait again. And so now we're continuing to keep guns in stock, so that if you're ready to buy and you want something right now, we have our ready to ship series, our RTS series. So that's kind of been our goals that we've just met, and then also wanting to expound on is just continuing that, expanding to the other segments of the market, make our work more accessible for the everyday user.
Yep.
That was a big thing, because it was kind of reserved just for the people that had the money, willing to wait, really knew what they were wanting out of a gun. Well, why can't we have a line, a value line, or I wouldn't want to call it a value line, but just something that's more affordable to the everyday user, has the options that are going to be benefited by your everyday shooter, that maybe they don't need these kind of more wild options because they're just not there yet.
Yep.
But it just, everything you need, nothing you don't kind of thing, still excellent value. Some of our stuff is coming in really, really affordable, and it's still really, really high quality. So, and then of course we still have our top tier stuff. We've been talking about kind of doing more master series pistols, which are, of course, are something that I really like doing.
Sure.
We did one last year as kind of a demo, and those are guns that are just like all balls to the wall, full custom stuff that we don't even normally offer to customers. I kind of build them as I wish, and then we sell them off, and those are really, really fun builds. So hoping to do more of those. I just ordered a Glock 34 for one of those projects, which we've never built, ready to ship Glock 34. So excited about that. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and kind of where our short-term goals are for now. I'd also like to continue to expand with the optic cuts. I'm really proud of the work that our team does with the optic cuts. They're super high quality. They're very affordable price point. Our turnaround times are really, really fast. Right now we're averaging 2 weeks for optic cuts, which you just can't beat, especially at our price point. We don't cut corners. You saw our equipment.
Yeah.
We have high quality equipment. We're running workpiece and tool probes for accuracy on these optic cuts. So I'm hoping to see our company expand more into that segment, and just make sure that everybody has an optic on their guns. I've seen it in the law enforcement side of things, how effective red dots are. They're becoming the standard, and they're starting to actually become required with some of the departments here. Locally, like the instructors are required now, and they're talking about making them mandatory just because their hit percentages are going up. It's a liability reducer. It increases survivability. So We have the capacity to do more of those for people. I'm hoping to get the word out that that's something that we do here.
Yep.
We've always been known for our framework, but I want people to know that we do just as high quality, slide machining here as well. So, that's a big one for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. So, you had a good point there that, every time a bullet's launched out of one of those guns that you've worked on, there's a lawyer attached to it, and you want the bullet to go where the person intended it.
Absolutely.
And your modifications help people do that. Also, the frame modifications help people recoil and recoil management, because you put the shooter higher up on the gun, and then there's surfaces on there that allow them to control that weapon a little better. I like that.
Yeah,
that's very
frame
good.
and slide too. Like reducing mass. I briefly touched on leverage of the gun. When the bullet's being projected, it's generating leverage on your wrist, like trying to break your wrist essentially. And by reducing mass high and far away, it reduces the mechanical leverage of recoil. So, and then by getting the gun, like you mentioned, getting the shooter's hand higher on the frame, giving them more grip with our frame package, all those things help you, combat the muzzle flip, the recoil, and generate a better mechanical advantage. So that's what it kind of comes down to, the science of things. And so it helps increase survivability. If we have officers out here, that are working late at night, and it gets snowy out here in the winter, and if you ever have to use your gun, it's wet or there's snow on it, you need to have the right grip, to be able to achieve that. And then having a dot just really, really helps, going from front sight focus to target focus, where you're able to gather so much more information. Your body's natural response is to fixate on the threat, and with front sight, with iron sight shooting, I should say, as it's been classically taught, with front sight focus, you're actually fighting your body's natural response, which is to fixate on the threat, gather as much information as possible. And with a red dot, you switch to target focus, and your both eyes are open, you're able to gather so much more information. And then you also have the target in focus, because biologically we're limited to one focal plane at a time. We can't focus front sight, rear sight, target, and have all those in focus, right? And then we're also trying to align with shooting iron sights 4 different things: the target, the front blade, the left of the rear blade, and the right of the rear blade. So we have 4 alignments going on. And with the red dot, we have 1 focal plane, the target focal plane, the most important one. It's completely in focus, and we only have 2 alignments instead of 4, the dot and the threat. Squeeze the trigger, So all those things increase survivability. And, again, the fact that we build tools for professionals, I kind of consider us tool makers. Those things all come into play. We want to increase survivability. Unfortunately, the world we live in these days, we're seeing more and more self-defense shootings on the news every day. And, I know that we just had something happen in North Carolina the other day, I think it was. And, so it's always important to be prepared and to train and to, make sure your equipment is squared away and that you're ready to go, because unfortunately in the world we're living in, it's just, it seems more and more likely these days.
Well, I know you and I are both in the gun business, right? Manufacturing and actually consumer deliveries. But let's talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on training. My thoughts are, is like, bought a cool gun, do you know how to use it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like you just got to train. And I kind of touched on this earlier, but if you don't train, if you don't have those fundamentals locked down, like, you're just never going to, become a good gunfighter and increase your survivability. And, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I kind of break it down as a triangle when I used to instruct. Is like, you have just your base fundamentals, that's your trigger squeeze, your breath control, your sight alignment, all that stuff. And that absolutely needs to be mastered. And then you kind of have weapons manipulation on the other side of the triangle. On the base, like, how well can you operate your firearms in your environment, whether that's mag changes, rifle to pistol transitions, vice versa, stuff like that. There's a lot of people that can go to the range, they can shoot good groups, but they can't transition, they can't walk and shoot, they can't do, some basic stuff that should be expected as part of weapons manipulation. And then at the tip of my triangle for training is tactics. And tactics are the true separator of the boys and the men when it comes to gunfighting, because you can be, you can have excellent weapons manipulation and fundamentals, and if you're not tactically sound, you'll be exploited by a tactical shooter all the almost every time, because they're going to take advantage of you. So that's kind of my training triangle that I've broken it down to. I think it's easy to explain in that way. And a lot of people will never progress past fundamentals. They just go to the static range, they just shoot their one shot a second. They never really push themselves. They never get to weapons manipulation. They never, maybe do a competition or, a 3-gun class or shoot or something like that, or take a class, a rifle class, and they're transitioning, doing mag changes. They're sloppy or something like that. They'll never get to that. And then there are people that do that, but there's very few people that do both those things and also do tactics, which, if in this, I would tell anybody, if you haven't taken a force on force class, you're absolutely missing out. You have to take a force on force class. You'll learn so much about yourself as a shooter and what you don't know once you take a force on force class, because gunfights are dynamic. They're not static. This isn't the 1700s. We're not walking 15 paces, turning around and dueling each other. You're always moving, and you'll learn that through a force on force class. So our guns are built for the people, again, that have done all three of those things, that are tactically sound, and have all the weapons manipulations down and fundamentals sound, but they're also set up that if you're starting just at the base, you're learning fundamentals, all that stuff, it's not going to hurt you to have one of our pistols,
Right.
It might spoil you a little bit, but, it's something that you can grow into. You can grow into one of our guns. You'll be set. You won't need anything else once you get to that top level. But you absolutely have to train, because they're useless without training.
For sure.
There's I'm sure you guys deal with this all the time. There's a ton of people that can still carry every day, and they're just not confident in actually using that firearm, whether it's just drawing the gun to use it, or whether it's using it when their heart rate's high, when their adrenaline's dumping, shooting at a realistic cadence. If you only ever shoot 1 shot per second, because let's say a range limits you to 1 round per second. I hate range. I won't go to ranges like that. Like, I have to be able to shoot a realistic self-defense scenario, like 5 shots in a second, right? And so some shooters will never even do that, and they'll never shoot in a realistic self-defense scenario. Right. So I remember I was training somebody, and this person is a fantastic shooter now, but this was over a decade ago, and she was just getting into guns, really, really petite woman, and she'd never been yelled at. And so we were running, and I was yelling at her, and she missed a target, a double tap, at 3 yards. I mean, completely missed it, because heart rate was up, and she was under stress and didn't know what it was like to cope with that, and missed, And so if you never push yourself and never put yourself under stress, you won't know how you perform under stress. And there's some people out there that they just shut down on scenarios like that. And those people probably, realistically shouldn't carry a gun. That's something that they would have to evaluate for themselves.
Right.
But having a gun on you could become a liability at that point. So that's why it's important to push yourself to the limits, because you'll never know how you perform. And then there's people that are just absolute rock stars under pressure. I don't know if you saw this in the military, but I did. We'd have guys that were just absolute PT studs, and then when the pressure was on, they would shut down. These guys you thought they were rock solid, but they just couldn't handle the pressure. And then you would see dudes step up under pressure and actually be able to, and it would always be the people you wouldn't necessarily expect,
right?
But they would thrive under pressure. And so, training is so important, because again, if you ever carry a gun for self-defense, or to protect your family, or, whatever scenario that you have for yourself, have your bases covered. You have to train.
Yeah, that's a good point. I served with some people that were, in garrison. They were all their stuff was lined up perfectly.
Yeah, rock stars. Yeah.
And then we got into either a tactical situation in a major deployment, or actually our combat deployment, and they were not adequate. So thank God our chain of command was able to identify those people real quick and put them in positions where they wouldn't get someone killed. They're writing a PTSOP for somebody, for some unit, instead of out there conducting combat operations, which is, you want your warriors that can think clearly on their feet and react to very unusual situations quickly, and deal with failure fast.
Absolutely. And you made me think is like, that's also why it's so important to find good instruction. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of instructors out there that they instruct because they like guns, but they don't really have a full grasp on what they're teaching. And so find an instructor that works well with you, that conveys what you're learning really well and helps you fully grasp it so that you can kind of climb the ladder on your own too. You don't just have to be under instruction to learn, but a quality instructor will set you up with the right mindset to prepare yourself to also learn on your own. But you're absolutely right. Quality leadership, in the military world, and then quality instructors, in the civilian sector make all the difference.
Yeah, and just because they have some kind of background doesn't make them a great instructor. They may know how to shoot, but getting that point across to someone who needs a little different explanation may be a little foreign to them. I've been on the range with people like that. I'm pretty lucky that that the staff at Rainier Arms Firearms Academy, they're very, very good. I've got a couple military guys, but I also got some dude that worked at the railroad. Yeah, and he's the best instructor I've got.
Yeah, and you don't have to have a military background or a law enforcement background to be a good instructor, to be a good shooter like that. And that shouldn't be controversial. I've seen some excellent shooters that have no military background, no competition background or anything like that, and they're just fantastic shooters. Yeah. They're usually intelligent individuals, and they're able to break it down in a manner that's concise, so that they can teach well. And and I've seen, like you were mentioning, the inverse, where I've seen military dudes have a ton of knowledge, kill a lot of people, and they aren't good teachers. They just don't have that teaching bone. They're not able to connect well with their students. So, it's great to hear that you guys have a great staff out there that does that well, so that the people that are learning are learning the things that they need to.
And we have guest instructors that come out and we vet them, So if they don't look like they're going to have the same kind of standard culture, as what we have, we don't have them out. Or we find out one time and then we never have them out, right? Again.
Yeah, but it sounds like y'all are into the same mindset. It's just like, don't cut corners, don't compromise, and just because you say you're this or you say you're that doesn't mean that you're actually in.
Because it matters, right? I mean, when you leave your house and you're going to Walmart with your wife to grab something, and some person has some evil intent against you, you need to be able to perform like then. Absolutely. You can't wait for it.
I tell people about gunfighting too. It's like, you want every advantage that you can have.
Cheating is allowed.
Exactly. That's what I say that same thing to people. I said, hey, gunfighting is the one sport, if you want to call it a sport, where cheating is highly encouraged. It's because the consequences of losing are so severe, So, you want to take advantage of your enemy in any way possible. So it's, having quality instruction can help you do that, and so it's really, really important.
Contrary to popular Hollywood movies,
I'm a big movie buff, so
me too, but they're
brutal.
Your basic criminals are not so trained.
No.
Right? So one of the things I do, if I'm lucky enough to be in front of some students, I don't necessarily train people any longer, but I'm there to facilitate and then add some wisdom, or if things are getting boring, I tell a story that makes everybody want to focus back on training. But the thing I leave them with, I'm like, look around you. These are the people that are making themselves better in case something bad happens. The bad guy's not making himself better. He's just going to try to get lucky on you. Yeah. Right? So if you, like you said, you cheat as much as you can with getting your gear right, or you cheat as much as you can with identifying a threat way off so you might avoid it. You cheat as much as you can with getting your mindset to where if you want to go there, we're going to go all the way there real quick.
Mindset is so important. I think that's like one big thing that is really, really neglected by instructors in the industry today is mindset. I remember having to watch mindset videos from Panteo Productions, if I can say that, on camera back in the day, and it was some brutal stuff. It was like cartel dudes like cutting dudes' heads off and stuff like that, and they're like, this is coming to America. Yep. And then I'm sure you watch mindset stuff too before your deployments. Like we had to do pre-deployment training, watching fellow Americans getting blown up and stuff, and it's brutal stuff to watch, but it's also important to understand that the realities of war, the realities are these people are trying to kill you or hurt you. And if you want to survive, you have to be mentally prepared to do that, and that's why it's so, so important, often neglected, but you absolutely have to be in the right headspace, and then understanding that One other thing too is that I think a lot of people overestimate their abilities. I think
Totally.
and that is a big crux or crutch for them because they think I've been shooting my whole life, or this and that. They grew up around guns. Guns are cultural to them or whatever, and they think just because they've been shooting a pop can their whole life or whatever that they're going to be solid, and that's just not the case. And that I saw a lot of that when I was down in Texas. Guns are very, very cultural down there, and don't get me wrong, there's a great shooting community down there. But we had a cop come into our store. It was a constable, and this dude's carrying a six shooter with a bullet bill.
Yeah.
In like 2015, and I'm like, dude, like, what do you have to do if you need to shoot more than 6 shots? Like the FBI says statistically, it takes an average of 6 pistol shots, regardless of caliber, to incapacitate a threat, to create enough shock for them to shut down. That means you have to have 100% hit percentage with your 6 shooter there on one person. What if there's multiple threats? Like, what are you going to do? You're just going to start plucking bullets out of your belt and loading them into your cylinder and get back in the fight? Like that's crazy to me, and again, that guy probably thought he was a great shooter and this and that, but a terrible gunfighter, I would imagine, So yeah, it's don't overestimate your abilities. Go take a class, get some instructions, learn where you're at, see where you're at, and then push yourself. The standards so that you can train on your own too and get better.
No matter how much training you have, what do you need? Fundamentals.
Yep.
I take a fundamentals class every year.
Yeah.
Every year. I've been shooting my entire adult life. I was carrying a gun since I don't even want to talk about it.
It's not always the funnest thing to do, but it's important. It's so important. You got to
groove it, man, because you'd be surprised. Like very rarely keep a gun. I never really rarely carry the same gun over a couple years. I've kind of broke that mold now that I've got the gun that I love the most. But for the most part, it's either one or the other.
Yep.
And then I go back and I groove those fundamentals with those. And if I'm off the gun 2 weeks, I go shoot a test.
Yeah, that's great.
So that I understand that if I go to if I'm on the mean streets of Wichita and something goes down at the QT, I can make that shot from the bathroom to the front counter. I'll make sure I can do that.
No, you're absolutely right. It's super important. It's not always the funnest stuff to do. Like we're fortunate here in Colorado. We have a lot of public land that you can shoot on. So, I have some friends and we'll drive out to up north and set up in the grasslands. We bring our own steel. We'll shoot out to 400 or 500 yards with ARs and on some pretty small plates and get hits, and that stuff's always really, really fun to do.
Yep.
And but if you don't have your fundamentals mastered, like I recently got a range membership, so I could just do that same thing, just go shoot my pistol stuff, like just make sure I'm grouping well, doing all the basic stuff well before I go do the fun stuff. Because it's funny, like I've taken some people out to go shoot far and at distance, and had some dudes just absolutely struggle past 100 yards. Like they just never shot past 100 yards.
Yeah.
And with some really expensive setups too. Like we're getting out there with 10 power LVPOs on some rifles, and they're struggling at 200 or 300 yards just because they've never done it. So you just need to be really versatile as a shooter too. You know, and don't get me wrong, as a civilian, the chances of you taking a 100-yard shot are very, very unlikely, but you never know. And if you are ever in that situation, it's much better to be prepared than to kind of be guessing, and then again, knowing how you perform under stress, knowing what your capabilities are important too, just so that part of the mindset thing, like, can I make this shot? Should I make this shot? Those are all things to consider,
Do they get away, or what's the threat look like?
My background like? There was that kid in that mall shooting that shot it with like 47 yards or something like that. Super impressive with a Glock 43X or 48. Super impressive, and
you hadn't trained that much either. I think,
yeah. And
sometimes God's hands on your back.
Totally, totally. And there's also people that are just naturally gifted shooters. And then there's people that have to work harder at it than others. And if that's you, if you're that person that has to work harder at it, then work harder. The consequences again are so severe of losing. So, but yeah, I can't emphasize training enough. Having the right mindset, finding the right instructors to help you build your skill set so that you're confident. And then, like you're saying, like just remedial training. Like, they say it's like riding a bike, but you do get rusty. Like you absolutely do get rusty if you don't shoot for a while. Yeah. And, there was a time in my life where I kind of, maybe got a little burnt out on shooting, and I took like a couple of years off, and I just was only shooting like once or twice a year, and it was just not enough,
Yeah.
So that's been one of my own personal goals for myself, not for the company, but for myself the last year, is just get my tools in order, and kind of limiting. Like, I'm kind of like you. I don't know if you're this way, but I don't have a lot of guns, but I have a few very, very nice guns, and I try to be a master of those instead of just owning a bunch of different stuff, having a huge collection.
Yeah.
I do think if you're gun hopping, so to say, it hurts your ability to really master one platform. Don't get me wrong, a competent, good shooter will shoot well with any gun that they pick up, or should be able to shoot well.
Yep.
But if you really want to be a true master, it's like focus on one.
I mean, it matters per caliber.
Oh,
so I shot Monday night. My wife and I shoot because there's no one on the range, so we train together. That's my backup, right? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Now she shoots so good, I'm her backup. So
that's awesome.
I carry a 1911 every day in 9mm, right? So I said, well, I haven't shot my 45 in a while. Same manual of arms.
Yeah, same platform.
Man, my reloads were horrible, just horrible. I was dismayed at my performance where that was concerned.
My very first gun was a 1911. It was my deployment pistol commemorative, and I have not shot that in probably 4 or 5 years. I bet my reloads on that would be pretty brutal on the single stag.
Man, it was bad. So, speaking of 1911 type guns, you guys usually specialize in your striker fired commodity, right?
Yep.
Do you see yourself doing a lot of work on hammer fired guns?
So, we recently started doing optic cuts on like 226s, stuff like that. On an individual level, like we've done some, I've done some custom 226s. I'm a big fan of the 226 platform and the 229. I just think they're really, really solid shooting guns. Really reliable. I think there's a reason why the SEALs carried them for almost 20 years, We've talked about expanding into potentially Shadow 2s, and then also staccatos, like 2011s in the future. We have done 2011 work, now. Like, we've done barrel polishing, magna porting for them. I do trigger installs for local customers. And stuff like that. My duty pistol is actually a 2011 staccato that I've fully customized. So I really do have a traction of a platform. So yeah, we've actually Dave Tim. We did some custom staccatos for him, a friend of y'all's, and he's been really, really happy with them. So yeah, I would like to expand more into doing framework for them. Optic cutting's kind of unique with those because there's specialty shops that specialize in them, and like I said, we kind of try to stick with our niche,
Okay.
as far as that goes. There's a lot of unique challenges with optic cutting them. We have optic cut a couple just to test, and they went fine, but it just depends on the sight placement, if they have an adjustable sight, if they have their plate system, all that stuff. So and then God forbid we mess one up, they're really expensive to replace.
Yeah.
We don't have to replace guns very often, but accidents do happen. We had the power go out and we crashed on a brand new Glock for a cop. We bought him a brand new gun.
Sure.
We stand behind our work. We didn't try to repair it or anything like that. We just bought him a brand new gun. You're gonna, we always do right by our customers. So God forbid we had to do that with the staccato, it would be really expensive. I think it's like almost $1,000 to replace a slide for one of those. So, so it's something that we've talked about. The Shadow 2s, like, they're super popular for competition right now. So we've had a lot of places hit us up to do optic cuts on those, but we need to develop a plate for that. So that is something that I'd be interested in. But there's specialty CZ shops that just specialize in just doing those kind of things. So. So we're kind of focused on expanding our Glock stuff and our other polymer frame pistol stuff, keeping up to date with what's current in the polymer frame pistol market and all that stuff. But that stuff certainly isn't lost on us, and it's something that does interest us. It's just a lot of irons in the fire. We have a big footprint, but we're a small shop, so we have limited resources as far as all that stuff goes. So. But yeah, hopefully in the future we can do more of that. I definitely like the platform, so Yeah.
There's more and more companies out there producing a hammer-fired 2011 type gun.
Yeah, I saw there's some like Turkish clones that came out recently that are like under $1,000 or $1,100 or something like that.
Man, those SDS guns, well, I've shot them and they're really good.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the difference between a staccato and that gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's also $1,000 difference between the two guns.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, my buddy just picked up. I think it's like the Thesis or whatever.
Thesis, yeah.
Yeah, 2011. So he shoots a lot. So like a couple thousand rounds a month. So I'm curious to see what he thinks of the platform. And then, I know that the Springfields came out as kind of an entry-level 2011s, and they originally had some issues, but it sounds like they've kind of corrected those, and then might be a good platform for doing some customization on. Like, that I almost bought one to like see what I could, do kind of for myself, like as far as customizing. But I ended up, I bought my staccato from you guys. And I've customized it, and it's kind of funny because staccatos to me are entry-level 2011s because you have Atlases and and these other really Infinities, really high-end, $5,000-$7,000,
$6,000 guns,
guns out there. So staccatos are kind of entry-level to me, and then these are like really, really cheap. But if they work, then that's great. Like that's big for me. Like I'm not a collector. Like guns are tools to me. Like I said earlier, I consider myself a tool maker. So if they don't run, I don't want them. So they gotta run, unless it's a competition thing where it's like reliability isn't like paramount. But if you can't 100% trust your gun, and my business partner is the same way. Like he bought an STI a while back before they rebranded, and had reliability issues with it, and it was
magazine related, or was it?
He had a Costa Comp carry, and I don't remember quite what the problem was, but we just couldn't get it to run. It was a 45 Costa Comp carry, and it would not run, and he sold it right away. And I'm the same way. If I buy a gun and it doesn't work, like I don't want it. It puts a bad taste in my mouth because you just can't trust it. If you think about how for your average consumer, they're not going to the range once a month and training. Like they're going to carry a gun every day, and they might shoot 2 or 3 times a year. And if the one time that you need it to go bang, it doesn't, that's a problem. Most people are never put in a situation in their lives where they do need to use their guns, but and that's great. I hope that all of our clients never ever have to draw their gun. Like, I never want to need to use my gun, but if I do need to use it, I need to have 100% faith that it's going to work.
It's the one thing you don't want to worry about, right?
Yeah. And I will say, like my staccato has ran flawlessly. I've yet to have a single malfunction with it. So I'm definitely impressed. Like, I think that's one reason why they rebranded. Yeah. I don't want to speak on behalf of STI or staccato, but, they've kind of developed a relationship, or a reputation for having a reliable 2011 platform with these improvements that they've made. And I don't know about you guys, but a couple departments here in Colorado have approved them for carry, and from what I've heard from their range staff and their other armors, that they've been working well, and they haven't been having issues. There's another company that is really popular right now that I'm not going to say who they are, but one of our department or neighboring departments approved, and they've been having a ton of issues, and we've been having a ton of issues with those guns, and they're very, very hit or miss. And so again, that's why it's so important for us as a company to make sure that our stuff works 100% of the time, and that's why we don't use aftermarket slides or frames, or we only use factory components that we modify, that we we're modifying just to maintain that reliability. So I'm always down for affordable guns that can get people into a market that they wouldn't normally be able to access, provided that they're reliable. So
sure.
I'm one of those people I would rather have a $500 Glock that doesn't maybe shoot as nice as a $1,000 1911 or 2011, but if the $500 Glock works every time, I think it's a better option for carrying.
Totally.
For me
and then those hammer-fired guns take a little more manipulation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The manual of arms is a little bit more advanced. Well, not advanced; it's a little more in depth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like a striker fire. I mean, look, like there's no real popular for. There's a reason striker fires are so popular for carries. Is like they're all passive safeties on most all of the guns these days. You have very, very few guns with mechanical safeties. And people want to be able to just draw the gun and squeeze, because under pressure, if you don't practice that a lot, you forget to turn that safety off and you get a click or something like that. So I think that's why they've always been popular, and we're not seeing as many hammer-fired guns these days. I will say, like, the hammer-fired guns that we are seeing are more 2011 stuff, which is funny to see the platform kind of come full circle.
Yeah.
But they shoot really, really well, man. Like, it's hard to deny that, and all the hammer-fired guns that I have owned, have all usually been really, really accurate guns. I've owned a couple 226s, some HKs. Haven't been a huge fan of the HK stuff, but a big fan of my 226 and my 229. We also work on PO7s and PO9s, and those are really, really popular for CZ, and we modify those and kind of improve the triggers on them and stuff like that if people order that. And those are popular hammer-fired platforms, kind of have a cult following and niche following for those. So, yeah, it's always interesting to kind of see how the industry is moving around and, changing. And, like, one thing that I've noticed is, like, almost every gun these days is optic plate ready system.
Yeah, it has to be.
Because the consumers want that. The problem we're having is, like, a lot of the plate designs aren't good,
They're like an afterthought, sort of?
Well, like, we have an issue with Glock plates and Smith & Wesson. So, and this is just from experience, as an armor and then servicing these local departments. I mean, the MOS system with the factory plate is too loose, and the screws that they use are too small. So, when you're shooting, the kinetic energy is being transferred to these tiny 440 screws instead of through the slide. And with direct milling, which is something that we do, where the cut is so tight that sometimes even our cuts, you have to tap the optic to get it to seat all the way. When you're shooting, all the energy is going straight through the body of the optic to the slide. There's no gap for the optic to wiggle around with. Plus, we use industry standard 632 size screws, which have a way more holding power. And so with the MOS system, with the factory plates, we've had probably 50 in the last 2 years broken screw extractions that we've performed for Denver Police Department alone, just because the plates are breaking, or they're loose and causing the screws to break and to shear off. We also have that exact same problem with the Smith & Wesson M&P series. So there's aftermarket plates that are much tighter and help eliminate that problem. But the problem is a lot of people, when they're buying them, they don't know. They're uneducated, the consumer, and so they just throw on the factory plate, and then they have these failures. I mean, we have videos of cops here in Colorado in classes where their optics are literally flying off their guns because they've broken off. And
wow.
Even behind you on this table, I have some examples I'll show you later off camera. So, direct milling is definitely the way to go. But it's funny because almost every gun nowadays is optic ready, and there's some plate systems that are fantastic from our experience that are really, really solid. But unfortunately some aren't. So I'm sure the manufacturers will catch up and hopefully try to do better on that stuff. But that is something that we do see right now kind of going on with that. So
yeah, we see that hammer-fired gun becoming super popular throughout our sales channels.
Kind of a resurgence.
A big time, you know, and it was like late 2022 was going to be, it started to feel it. And then 2023 has really been an explosion in that market, and shot 2024, you saw a couple new guns hit the market.
Yeah.
So we find that that's going to be, I think that's going to continue to expand. Triggers are awesome in them normally.
Or can be made to be very awesome.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But same could be said for other guns too. Like I have a VP9 that's had a trigger job on it, and that trigger is unbelievable. Yeah. And I also have a Glock that's had a great trigger put in it.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're absolutely right. I think that is one benefit of hammer fired, is you typically do get better triggers in them than striker fired. But I also think that's part of why striker fired is so popular for carries. Some people like carrying a heavier trigger or having that really distinct wall that you get with the striker fired gun. Yep. Again, just so they're having accountability with that shot that they're firing. True. But, I'm kind of a trigger snob. I once you get spoiled by a nice trigger, it is hard to go back. So it's for instance, I'm really happy that Glock released their Glock Performance trigger. I don't know if you've had a opportunity to play with those or not,
not
but
yet.
we've installed quite a few of those, and they recently just changed it so now it's Gen 5 and 4 compatible instead of just Gen 5. But they increased the poundage on it a little bit to 5 so that it would be LE compliant. The original ones were 4.5. We routinely would measure them closer to 4.25, where your finger would actually rest, versus the middle of the trigger. I don't like to measure in the middle if that's not where you're actually pressing. So that's something that I think does help shooters. Our department, we put Apex trigger shoes in the whole department's guns to help them be able to, use the pad of their finger instead of the joint. Factory Glock triggers shoot better when you're using the joint, which is counterproductive. That's not how you're supposed to really shoot.
Right.
You're supposed to use the pads. So
that's why I can't shoot with my Glock.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm gonna blame it on
that. If you seriously try one of those Glock Performance triggers, man, they're really, really nice. And if you put a factory Glock minus connector in them, it gets them down to right around 4 pounds or 3 3/4, depending on the connector, and it feels really nice. So yeah, it's Glock is kind of slow to innovate, but that's something that was long overdue, like a factory, performance modification that works well. And typically on our guns we don't modify triggers because we know that a lot of clients are very particular with sights and then also triggers. They have like something that they like, so we always will install stuff if they ask us to. We sell mostly just the Apex systems, and then for Glock and for M&P FN we install Apex, and we have a relationship with them. We've kind of helped them over the years, and they've helped us. And the reason why we use their stuff is because we trust them. Their stuff works. So we've used aftermarket triggers from certain companies, popular companies, and a lot of cops' guns. And 6 months later, they're upset because the trigger safety fell out or something like that. Or we've had ones that the safeties are being bypassed, stuff like that. So with Apex, we trust them. We know they're going to work. They're duty grade. So we've used them, and then we've been impressed with the Glock Performance trigger so far as well. So, and then for CZ, we use the Cajun kits typically. Those are really popular and they work well. So, and then for 1911s, that's where my gunsmithing background comes into. I had done some 1911 trigger jobs before I ever went to gunsmithing school. I really enjoyed doing them. So I have done a few of those on some staccatos for local customers of ours, and man, they come out pretty sweet. Get them down to 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds, which is no pre-travel, tiny bit of over travel, and just so
safety
sweet.
Comes off, bullet goes down.
Yeah, it's like super sweet.
I love it, man. Well, what a great time we've had today. You're right. You didn't have any problem talking on camera. That's good. You had plenty to say, which is
good.
Don't
shut the hell up.
I appreciate. No, that's what it makes me look like I'm doing a good job, which I appreciate.
No, I appreciate the questions you asked.
And we do. We normally do this in our battle position in Wichita, but it was important for us to come up here and share some time with you and as our partner, and we want to make sure that we're a good partner for you, and this is one of those steps.
Absolutely. Hey, we really appreciate the whole team here having you guys out. We've obviously had a relationship with Rainier Arms for some years now, and the opportunity to build pistols for y'all has been great. These SIGs that we've been doing recently are really, really sweet, and the fact that y'all trusted us to execute them for you guys means a lot. And so the opportunity to continue doing that, to finally meet y'all, is great, and the support is fantastic. So I really do appreciate you guys making the drive out here to come to us and check us out and set up here and chat a little bit and see what we do here and kind of see what we're about. So I've always appreciated Rainier Arms, and it means a lot to us. So.
Well, thank you so much, man, for having us out. We love it. So understand that you can get these products not only through Danger Close Armament, but you can also get those products from us at rainierarms.com, and in any of the retail locations that we have in Auburn and Oklahoma City and Wichita. The Rainier versions of the Danger Close version of the Rainier SIG is pretty slick. You need to get by a retail store and see it, or check it out online. Buy yourself one. You won't be sad. So, over the barrel, we'll see you next time.